I think
Awesome.
so. Yeah. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We have life coach Alea Carter in the house, who is going to be talking emotional intelligence, how we can better understand and read our own emotions, learn how it affects our behaviors, how we can better manage some relationships, et cetera, et cetera. So I know I'm very excited, and I will stop talking and I will hand it right over to Alea to take it from here.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Audrey, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to talk about something that is very interesting to me, something that I studied on my own and I implement it in my personal and professional life. So today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. I am Alea Carter, as Audrey said. I'm a certified life coach, a founder of Be Whole Life Coaching. So let's get started. Today, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to first define emotional intelligence. It's also known as EI or EQ. I'll refer to it as EQ. Tips to pretty much improve your EQ. A lot of people feel like you're born with it and that's it. Either you do have it or you don't, but you can improve it, you can increase it. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the application of EQ in your personal as well as your professional life. We will also explain why it's so important to interpret difficult situations and challenging interactions with others in a positive way so that you can stay motivated and exhibit resilience. And then lastly, I'll go over some recommended reading and resources to share with you. Okay, so let's talk about what is emotional intelligence and what it's not. Emotional intelligence is kind of like the partner of IQ. You need both to be successful, but I want to tell you that emotional intelligence is just as important as EQ, if not more important, in your work life and your personal life. It is pretty much the ability to understand and manage your emotions and understand the emotions of others and take that awareness to manage your behaviors and your relationships, your interactions with other people. And the actual term was coined by two psychologists in 1990. It was made better known when a book came out by Daniel Goleman. Like we said, these are skills that you can acquire and build over time. If you do take an EQ score, you will hopefully be in the average range between 90 and 100, but the actual perfect score is 160. Not too many people are at that perfect score, I tell you that much, because we're always improving, right? Right. So there are four basic skills or components of EQ. They include self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And we'll go through each one briefly and describe them. So let's see. I'll give you a chance to look at this. This is I love this illustration because it really explains it in a concise way. So self-awareness, being aware of your own emotions, self-management, are you able to manage your behaviors well with that awareness? Are you able to pick up on other people's emotions? That's social awareness. And then what do you do with it? How do you maintain those relationships? So I'm going to move this little square around. I hope you guys can see it well. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper. Self-awareness is the ability to accurately perceive your own emotions, stay aware of what's happening, what you're feeling, what you're sensing, your thoughts. It is also knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, really knowing yourself, what ticks you off, what boils you, what also brings light to you, what makes you happy, what inspires you. All those things are in the category of self-awareness. Self-management is what you do with that information. Okay, I see myself. I know my strengths, weaknesses, what makes me happy, what doesn't. Now what? How do I manage it? How do I direct my behavior in positive ways? No matter what the situation, no matter what the people, right? And then social awareness takes it a step further. You're getting outside of yourself, and now you're looking at your relationships, who you are interacting with. Are you able to pick up on their emotions? Are you able to sense what they're not saying? If you ask someone, hey, how are you today? And they have a frown on their face and they say, I'm fine. Can you read that? Can you read between the lines and see what is not being said? Okay. And then lastly, the relationship management. With what you see in other people and their emotions, how do you interact with them? Are you able to motivate them? Are you able to develop good, healthy relationships with others? Or is that a struggle? Is that a challenge? And why? Okay. Um, with relationship management, you'll get to a point where you are able to influence others without controlling them or manipulating them. Okay. Few statistics by Forbes. Enlightening. So 90% of top performers also scored high in EQ, while only 20% of the bottom performers scored high in EQ. So EQ is almost an indicator of high performers, high success, those people that really give their best, good work ethic, can work out with other people and teamwork and influence their coworkers in a positive way. So that's interesting. I thought it was, right? So you may be thinking, you may be looking at all those previous slides and you're like, I wasn't born with EQ. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't, maybe that's you. If that's the case, there's still hope. You can learn, you can acquire these skills, you can grow. Even if you score high on the EQ tests or quizzes, there's still room for improvement. So these are a few things that you can start off by doing. Always, 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 always pay attention to how you behave, right? It maybe seems daunting, but this is all about your self-awareness and knowing what you're doing, how you're feeling, what you're thinking. Take responsibility for those feelings and actions. Sometimes we ignore them, sometimes we invalidate them, or we let other people do that. Not so. If you're trying to improve your EQ, your feelings are real, they're valid, accept them, and move on from there. Work through them. Take time to celebrate the positives, but be aware of the negatives as well. So EQ, one thing EQ isn't is just, oh, somebody's just walking around positive, happy, smiley all the time. It is an awareness, it's management, it's self-regulation, it's all those things. So you see the good, you see the bad, you see all of it, the big picture. Celebrate good, but also notice the things that aren't so good. I love this one. Adopt an assertive, not aggressive, too passive way of communication. How many times have you been in a situation you find yourself on either spectrum? Maybe you're on the spectrum of, oh man, I should have spoke up for myself. I just let them run all over me. This is not how I actually felt, but I told them something different. Or were you that aggressive type where you just gave them the piece of your mind? You said everything that was in your mind, heart, without any regard for anyone. I want us to work on being somewhere in the middle of the spectrum, right? That's the ideal place. Not to say we're all going to be perfect, we're all the time going to be on cue, but you want to be somewhere in that middle ground. There's a way to be firm and nice at the same time. Do you guys believe that? Yeah, I see some nodding on the head. Okay. Now, when you're faced with conflict, are you able to respond in a positive way? Can you handle it, or do you tend to react in a way that is just maybe even overboard or doesn't fit the situation? Take some time, step back, take a breath, pull yourself out of the situation, step out so you can see the whole picture. It'll help you gain ground. Be motivated. That gives you fulfillment. That helps influence others in a positive way as well. And train yourself to maintain a positive attitude. Because if you're thinking that something is difficult, and we'll talk more about this later, then it will be just that, difficult. Okay. Other tips. This is a hard one. A lot of people struggle with accepting criticism. Anybody want to be honest enough to say that's one of their struggles? Little hand here, there. Yeah, yep. It's something that we struggle with, but you definitely want to accept it, receive it, and then you are able to filter from that point. Is this true what they're saying about me? Is it false? If it's true, then thank you. You are actually helping me to become a better version of myself. Acknowledge your emotional triggers. This is a part of self awareness, knowing what gets you there to the point where you're going to, uh, lash out on someone or say something that you don't really mean in that moment. So if you know that someone scratching the chalkboard in the classroom takes you over, then that's something to be aware of. Maybe when that happens, you can work on being aware in that moment of what you're feeling, stepping back and telling yourself to breathe. So things like that. Emphasize with others. Yeah, yeah. Some of us are naturally empathetic and others we were not. We're just struggling with that part. It's okay. But put yourself in someone else's shoes for a moment. That's the key in empathizing, sorry, with someone else. Be approachable. Be approachable, be sociable, be that person that people feel comfortable coming to. That improves your EQ. Leadership skills. Many of you own your own companies, you're running your own businesses, you're influential in your circles of influence. So, leadership skills will be key in improving your EQ because that gives you the ability to influence others. They can see the skills and the strengths that you have, and they get from that as well. Active listening is super important in all of your relationships, whether work life or your personal life. If you're interrupting constantly in a conversation, you need to definitely be aware of that and work on listening and being there in the moment, not trying to figure out what the next person is going to say, but actually let them formulate their words and then you can give your feedback. Scheduling is awesome. It helps to reduce stress and anxiety because how many of you know that your EQ skills will decrease the moment you feel out of balance, the moment you feel like you're overwhelmed? So set yourself up for the best. There will be distractions, but if you have a good schedule, it kind of helps to ground you. And set personal goals. Make sure you have something that you're striving for, some achievement, some accomplishment that you're going for. That gives you fulfillment in life and it helps in your relationships with others because there are other people doing the same and you can relate with them. Anything so far? I want to take a pause. Any questions, comments? I see some in the chat. Audrey, help me out. Is anything as far as a question or concern?
One question is EQ different than social emotional learning?
It is very similar. And guess what? What you'll find is there are many terms that are interchangeable. So I know in school they use that term very often. They've incorporated in a lot of their curriculum for the children, which is awesome. I know I have a 6-year-old and they're teaching that as well. That's something that we weren't necessarily taught in my generation in school. So that, yes, that is an interchangeable, very similar term. Yep.
Yeah, I think that was the only question in the chat. Others were comments.
Awesome. Let's keep going. So, personal application. How do we apply EQ to our personal relationships? I just listed 3 of the hugest components, I would say, in personal relationships with your friends, family members, significant other. Think about integrity. Integrity is super important. That's you being honest, being upfront, being clear about your intentions and expectations. A lot of times we don't touch on that in our relationships, and a lot of things go unanswered. Needs go unanswered because not everybody can read minds, right? So maybe your significant other thinks one thing, but that's not your reality at all. So being honest with them and being honest about your needs as well. Super important. In regards to responsibilities, knowing how much you can handle, setting healthy boundaries, all of that is included in integrity. Be dependable, keep your word, all of those things in regards to loyalty. Empathy, we've talked about that. Create a safe space for your friends, family, significant others. The last thing they need is a judgmental mentality from someone who absolutely is supposed to be there for them as support and love. That's not to say you can't give advice. Definitely give advice. That's a part of building relationships and trust. But again, in building relationships and trust, you are establishing rapport. You should be. And then that opens the door for that advice, that counsel, right? Communication. We've been taught that communication is one of the most important things in any relationship. It is. So practice, practice, practice. Patience, understanding, and like we said, try not to interrupt. Try to be there in that moment. I'm going to give you an example. Say, for instance, your friend comes back from vacation and they're having a conversation with you. She says, I just got back from Disney World. And you say, oh, well, guess what I did this weekend? I went to da da da, right? That is probably a conversation crusher. So be there for that person in that moment. Instead of referring to yourself immediately, a way to build good communication, good relationship would be to say, oh, wow, you went to Disney World? What was your favorite part of it? Where did you stay? Was it super expensive? Was it affordable? Things like that, where they feel like they are the star. Give people their moment. Awesome. So let's talk about work life, EQ in professional environments. So this middle diagram, you'll see that there's a list of competencies in the middle, and on the sides, the two different spectrum. So you'll see here, the first one, I got to move my little light. First one is self-awareness. Are you disconnected with who you are, or are you present? Are you aware of who you are, what ticks you, all of that? What makes you happy? What are your dreams? What drives you? All of that. Are you there in the moment as well? Awareness of others. Are you insensitive, or can you feel what other people feel in that moment? Expressing your emotions. Are you usually guarded, on the defense, or are you authentic? Are you transparent? Are you able to share how you feel, what you're thinking? We need a balance of emotions and logic, right? So are you limited in what you're feeling and expressing that, or are you open enough and aware and able to explain how you feel? Then self-management. Will you pop off super easily, or are you able to deal with things in a calm way? That actually shows resilience if you're able to do so. You can really calmly deal with the situation at hand. When you're managing your relationships, are you indifferent? Do you even care that you're in that type of relationship, whether it be with a coworker, you got to work on a project together or make plans? Or are you the one that's like, hey, we can do this. Let's go. I believe this is easy. Let's get it. You do this part. I do this part. We got it. Management with others. Self-control. Lastly, are you reactive, or are you able to center yourself to the point where you can see everything going around you? You can see all that and still say, I'm not losing my mind, right? So let's see some examples of the application in the professional realm. Have clear goals. Try to get to know your coworkers and colleagues, your partners. Try to find something of interest, common interests, where you can have that conversation, where you can talk about something outside of work, right? Where you can bring down the stress level with deadlines and things that you have to work on with your clients or customers or coworkers. Deadlines can be very stressful, but if you can find commonality and you can find a way to kind of diffuse all of that, it builds better rapport and camaraderie, right? We talked about being firm, but still kind, right? Be flexible. Change is a part of life. And then calmly, collectively deal with pressure. It happens to all of us. It's going to happen. Hey, in work environments, are you a person who tends to gossip? Are you a part of it? I would highly recommend that you try to stay away from that. If that person is gossiping to you, they're probably gossiping to someone else about you, right? Then read the emotions of others and show interest. We mentioned that earlier. Can you lead without actually controlling an individual? Can you lead in a way where you don't feel like you have to manipulate others, take advantage of others and their niceness or their forgiveness? Can you lead by influence, pure influence? Create safe space. We said that. Have an open door policy. If you're a manager or some type of high level individual in an organization, have a open door policy where people feel like they can come and share their thoughts, share their new ideas, creativity without judgment, where it's invited, not only tolerated, but invited, right? And then see the overall picture, because a lot of times in the professional environment, maybe you are only responsible for a portion of the project or plan, but try to see the overall picture and how it impacts you and others. Okay. What are some things to stay away from in a professional environment in regards to EQ? Try not to be super defensive, aggressive. How many of you have had that at work, maybe, where someone is just like, wait, you look and you're like, are you the manager? Because I would guess you were, but they're not, right? That's an example. Some may take on too much. Do you have that coworker that is literally putting too much on his or her plate and it's not leaving much for you to do? How does that make you feel? Not so good, right? So we definitely don't want to do that. We want to make sure we are responsible for what we are responsible for. We can help and lend a hand to others, but try not to take on too much. Do you believe that it's possible to be too honest? Anybody? What I mean by too honest is sharing details that don't need to be shared. Perhaps you're in a meeting with upper management and they share discreetly some information about the company and the higher ups and some changes that are going to be coming down. You may want to use discretion and your judgment, better judgment, as far as how much you share with your coworkers, because it could incite some worry, right? Many people will panic under stress. Again, take a step back, take a breather, lean on logic, be aware of what you're feeling, but also take a moment to think and analyze those thoughts. Are you able to congratulate others? An example, maybe you receive positive feedback from your boss or from a coworker or from a client, and you want to share that with someone you're in business with, but that person in business didn't receive that same positive feedback. In fact, they received a negative review. But you come to them with your positive feedback. Yeah, look at this great review somebody gave me. This is awesome. My business is working well. And this person's like, yeah, but not me. Be that person that congratulates, even if maybe it didn't go well for you, right? Socialize, get to know people. You'll enrich your life if you do so. Be careful when you are having conversation with others not to dismiss their thoughts. dismiss their ideas, dismiss their feelings. Again, feelings are valid, even if it's not your reality. Okay? Try to be as positive as possible, not super critical. All right. Here's a good study that Forbes did, and it blew me away, and something to think about. Participants with high levels of emotional intelligence on average made almost $30,000 more per year than those with low scores in emotional intelligence. So that's something to hold on to. If you can improve your EQ, you could also improve money, 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 right? All right, before we move on, any questions, any comments? Audrey, did we miss any? Good, good, good. All right. So let's talk about how we interpret tough situations, tough, difficult conversations, or difficult interactions with others. How do we get past that? How do we motivate ourselves? I lost an earring. And then how do we keep going, right? Push through those hard times. Even this pandemic has really tested our resilience, all of us, right? So there are 4 factors when we're interpreting how difficult something will be, what task, what conversation, interaction. Possibility is something trivial to you, or do you feel like it's impossible? Do you feel like it's important? Okay, so first one, possibility. When you're approaching an easy task, try to follow me, an easy task, try to raise your awareness to its possibility. Example, I think it's easy to balance my relationships with others, for instance. So let me raise that, and that'll motivate me to realize that I can do it, as opposed to thinking it's difficult to maintain my relationships. It's going to make it that much more difficult if I don't bring that to my awareness how easy it actually is. Okay, if I think something is trivial, if I think something is super easy, too easy, I may not be motivated to get it done. But if you find intentionality or strategic ways to assign value to that, then you'll probably get it done. So if you think something is too trivial, oh my goodness, nobody cares about this, nobody's going to notice, so why do it? Change your thinking to look at that thing and see value in it. The way you could do that is looking at it long term, the long term impact of getting that thing done. So I think balancing my checkbook as a business owner is easy. I don't really need to do it. The bank keeps all my statements and this and that and this. But I may motivate myself to do it anyway by saying, if I balance my checkbook for my business, I'll be able to see my budget as far as how much money I can spend on my next vacation, right? So look at impossibility. For instance, if we think a task is super difficult to achieve, to get done, think about specific ways that you can get it done. That may include breaking it down into smaller pieces. That task isn't as difficult if you look at it in smaller segments, right? So I'll use just a home example. I say, I want to clean my house this weekend. That seems like a difficult task, right? All these different rooms, I gotta do all of these different things. I may not have enough time to get it done. People are gonna be in the way. My kids don't like bleach, right? But if I look at it and say, okay, I'm gonna get the kitchen done, which includes washing the dishes, sweeping, mopping the floor, dusting, break it down into small pieces, you actually feel like you're making more progress as you get those smaller pieces done. Makes it more possible. And then lastly, importance. If you're looking at a difficult task, try to raise the awareness of that importance. So if you feel like something is super important, you're more likely to get it done, right? So I feel like it's super important for me to be on this call. So I'm going to prepare my presentation, get everything ready. If I don't feel like it's important, I'm not going to get it done. I may wait to the very last minute to get it done, and it seems difficult. But it's raise your idea of how important that thing is. Okay? Make sense, everybody? Yeah. So reframing how you interpret that task. If it's too difficult, if it's too easy, reframe it. Give it power where it needs to be. Any questions, comments? All right. Do I have time to do a quick quiz, or do you want to open up Q&A? Okay. Let's see if this opens for us. This is a short 10-question EQ test, and I want us to kind of go through and help each other. So these are real life questions that may come up, situations may come up like this any day. Number 1, you're on an airplane which suddenly hits extremely bad turbulence and begins rocking from side to side. What do? Do you continue to read your book and magazine or watch the movie, paying little attention to the turbulence? Do you become wary of an emergency, carefully monitoring the flight attendants and reading the emergency instructions card? Do you do a little bit of both? Or maybe you're not sure. So anybody want to give a suggestion as which one they would choose? Audrey says she'd do a little bit of both. Someone says number 2, number 1, number 2. Number 2 wins. Okay, so let's choose number 2. I actually like number 2 as well, because you're aware of what's going on, but you're not totally freaking out. You're using logic to know what may happen next. So next, you've taken a group of 4-year-olds to the park, and one of them starts crying because the others won't play with her. What do? Do you stay out of it and just let the kids deal with it in their own way? Or do you talk to her and help her to figure out ways in which to get the other kids to play with her? Or perhaps you tell her in a kind voice not to cry? Or do you try to distract the crying girl by showing her some other things she could play with? Anybody? Got number 2 or 4, number 2. Okay. Let's go with number 2. I actually like number 2. This one catches me off guard a bit because I feel like I was taught number 4, in school or just over the years, to distract the child and just say, hey, you can play with this. But I like number 2 because it helps to foster better relationships with others. And obviously she really wants to play with the kids. So that's her desire. Work in that. Work on it, right? Okay. So assume you had hoped to get an A in one of your courses, but you have just found out you got a C- on the midterm. What do? Do you sketch out a specific plan for ways to improve your grade and resolve to follow through on your plan? Do you resolve to do better in the future? Do you tell yourself it really doesn't matter much how I do in that particular course and concentrate instead on other classes where your grades are higher? Or do you go to the professor and talk to her and talk her into giving you a better grade? 1 and 4, 1 and 4, 1. I personally like number 1. Come up with a plan. Your goal is still to do your very best in this course. Think in this moment, right? You doing well in other classes doesn't negate your concern in this class, right? So try to do your best. It's a midterm, so you still have time to improve, right? Number 1. Next one. Imagine you are an insurance salesman calling prospective clients. 15 people in a row have hung up on you. Oh, let me approve. 15 people have hung up on you and you're getting discouraged. What do? Do you call it a day and hope you can do better tomorrow, better luck tomorrow? Do you reassess what you are doing that may be underlining your ability to make a sale? Do you try something new on the next call and keep plugging away? Or do you consider a whole new line of work? I see two or three, two. I like number two. I really like number two, guys. Now somebody said number four. They were very adamant about it. Hey, that might be true. It might be time to make a switch. But you want to reassess first. Reassess in this moment because you don't want to just jump and make any sporadic move. This may be your calling. This may be something you absolutely love, but it's just a bad day. It's just a list that just doesn't want your services right now. Does that mean you have to jump ship? Maybe not, right? So reassess what you're doing first. Let me move on. What is this? Oh, you know what? I see it. All right. Number 5. You're a manager in an organization that is trying to encourage respect for racial and ethnic diversity. You overhear someone telling a racist joke. What do? Do you ignore it? It's only a joke. Call the person into your office for a reprimand? Do you speak up on the spot, saying that such jokes are inappropriate and will not be tolerated in your organization? Or do you suggest that the person telling the joke goes through some type of diversity training? I see 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 3, 3. Okay. I like them. I personally like number 3. You do want to deal with it in the moment, but not in a way to reprimand them. Like if you call them in the office, it's very harsh. They may not even hear you out. But if you show in a sense that this is what we're trying to work toward as a company, you can choose better wording even than number 3, I think. But to take care of it in that moment in a firm way, I think is okay. Number 4 is okay as well. I'm going to choose number 3 since most people did. Okay. So you're trying to calm down a friend who has worked himself up in a fury at a driver in another car who has cut dangerously close in front of him. What do? Do you tell him to forget it? He's okay now. It's no big deal. Put on one of his favorite tapes or CDs, songs, try to distract him. Do you join him in putting down the other driver but exaggerate your reaction? Do you tell him about a time something like this happened to you and how you felt as mad as he does now, but then saw that the other driver was on his way to the hospital? 1, 4, 2, 2. We are across the board on this one. And you know what? When you're taking these, please be honest with yourself. Literally be honest. Don't choose the best answer. Like we were trying to assess where we are. So if you wouldn't do it, don't choose it when you're assessing on yourself. Okay? I like number 4 because if you do number 1, you're almost invalidating his feelings. He has a right to feel upset. He could have died. You guys are okay, but you want to acknowledge how he feels. Distraction doesn't always hit the core of a thing. You always want to make people think, motivate them to think things through better. Okay? Let's see. Number 7. You and your boyfriend or girlfriend have gotten into an argument that has accelerated into a shouting match. In the heat of the moment, you both are making personal attacks that you don't really mean. What's the best thing to do? Give me some answers, guys. Take a moment to read. Be honest. What would you do? Got a 1. I got a 1. It's okay to be honest. 4, 4, 1, 4, 4, 4. Awesome. So we either got 1 or 4. I particularly like number 4 because it's very important for you to be clear about what you're feeling, what you're thinking. You can stop for a moment and then deal with it. You can say sorry, but you can't force anyone to apologize. As much as you may think they're wrong, you can suggest it, but that doesn't negate the conversation that still needs to be had, right? Just by saying sorry. You got to deal with it. Some of you said take a 20-minute break and then continue the discussion. That is fine. But in that moment, if you can deal with it in a reasonable way in that moment, it's better to take care of it then, right? Let's see. All right, number 9. Imagine that you have a 5-year-old son who is extremely timid and has been hypersensitive about and a bit fearful of new people and places since he's been born. What would you do? Take a moment to read the choices. Let me know. Four, 4, 2, 4, 4, 4. It looks like 4 wins. I am in agreement with number 4. Engineer an ongoing series of challenges. So give him a chance to learn, but not in a way that seems so threatening, right? Not so overwhelming. Okay. And lastly, for some time now, you've wanted to return to playing the musical instrument you have learned to play when you were younger. You have finally gotten around to practicing again, and you want to make best of use of your time. What do you do? Take a moment to read. Let me know what you think. Okay, guys. 1. Don't be shy. 3, 2, 2. Okay. We are across the board on this one, and I think it's okay. This one has a lot to do with your personality, your motivation, and how you deal with challenges. So if you're someone who wants to challenge yourself but not be overwhelmed, you'll probably choose number 2. If you really like to challenge yourself, you would choose number 4. I personally am going to choose number 2. So let's see how we did. Okay, so we got 140 out of 200. I know I said the highest is 160. This one's on a different scale, but we did amazing. So good job, guys. Woo! Yeah. All right, so let me go back. Get out of here. Oh, somebody said, yay. I'm just about done. So did you want to ask any questions, Ivory? Do you want to open it up?
I think if you're close, we could wrap your last couple slides up and then see what folks have.
Sounds good. So just going forward, guys, to wrap things up, you can ask yourself 5 questions in the moment when you're dealing with an EQ situation, which there are many every single day. Ask yourself, what specific emotion am I feeling right now? I love this wheel here, this colorful wheel, because a lot of times we'll just say, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm happy, I'm sad. These really give you the spectrum and open it up to describe it a little more specifically. So ask yourself how you're feeling. How am I feeling right now? Next question. What emotion is the other person feeling right now? So consider how they're feeling. Get yourself in their shoes. Next one. What can I do to control my emotions and my reactions right now? Next. How can I show genuine interest in this person right now? And then lastly, how am I interpreting this specific task as easy, difficult, and why? Okay? If you don't take anything else away from this presentation, take those things away. As you can see, self-awareness was one of the 4 EQ skills we talked about. Empathy, you'll see that also in EQ conversations all the time. Self-regulation, also known as self-management. Social skills, motivation is along the lines of relationship management. Okay? These are my 3 recommended books. Emotional Intelligence 2.0. You can find it on YouTube and listen to it for free. It's a 4-hour audio. Very good. If you buy the hard copy, you can get the quiz. You get a code to the quiz. And you can, I can share the wheel. You want to see it again, or you want me to make it available after this?
Can you make it available after?
Yes.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Awesome. No problem. And then this list here, the link, I should say, 26 of the best books on EQ. So definitely useful. Okay. If you want to take a screenshot of this is a shot of screen of all of the tests that I've taken in regards to EQ. Some are free, some are for a fee. And it kind of reveals where you're at. So I'm at average, and I know which ones I need to work on. So that's key, just knowing which one of the 4 you really need to work on and working on those. Okay. Awesome. Screenshot. And then if you want to contact me, guys, please reach out to me. I love this kind of stuff. If you want one-on-one coaching in regards to EQ, you want to increase your EQ, maybe you're struggling with your relationship management key part of it, then reach out to me. That's one of the biggest ones, relationship management, that I see in my practice. Also, I see self-awareness because I'm a personal development life coach, right? So that's one of the biggest parts of that we start on, assessing how you see yourself. Because you have to know who you are, know you, strengths, weaknesses, your drives, things that tick you off, your triggers, and you go from there. Thank you, Rowena. That's my mom, guys. Thank you. So yeah, reach out to me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, at Coach Alea Carter. There's my telephone number and my website. Let me move this square out. Can you guys see the website? Awesome. Audrey, I'm turning it over to you.
So yeah, I'm going to stop our recording, and then we can go to Q&A. But thank you so much, Alea, for joining us today and presenting as part of our LaunchPad series. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.